This isn't Laura's first temple run with Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. Her first iteration was given away for free, while Explorer Eileen was the main prize from the featured banner. The free Laura wasn't too notable. She was a non-elemental physical damage dealer that can chain with Chainsaw and Pile Driver. Now raise your hand if you've heard of those families. Lara Croft's Trustmaster reward is a materia that boosts attack by 50% and equipment attack by another 50% when holding a gun. It's a very simple materia, and while effective, it's not necessarily spectacular for a Trustmaster reward on a limited time unit. Her Super Trustmaster reward is a two-handed gun. It has the highest amount of attack for a gun, and that's literally all that's appealing about it. Of course, having more attack will always be important, yet that ceaseless characteristic will ultimately cheapen any single weapon's value at a given time. So on that happy note, onto her active abilities. All of her attacks get stronger in Clash of Wills, where they can scale with your morale. Keen Instincts removes any attack breaks on Lara, raises her attack and defense by 300%, and boosts her limit burst gauge fill rate by 150%. Hotshot deals physical damage that chains of Floating Strike, and gets stronger with each use. It also fills her limit burst gauge by a little less than 1/2 of each use. Explosive Shot imbues fire onto Lara, boosts her fire damage by 50%, deals morale-based damage, and fills her limit burst gauge by at least 3/5. Passives. With her Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, she gets an additional limit burst regen, a guts buff, and changes her normal attack to fill the limit burst gauge by a significant amount and raise the damage modifier of her physical abilities. She deals increased damage to beasts and humans, and meets half the requirement for full physical evasion. She prefers to hold two weapons in this form, acquiring extra attack and the ever-useful chain cap push when doing so. At EX plus 2, she gets an instant limit burst, and at EX plus 3, she gets 500 attack. Let's look at her limit burst. It lowers the enemy's fire resistance by 130%, boosts your team's attack by 250%, and then deals fire damage that scales with morale. It also fills the morale gauge as well, which is especially nice in Clash of Wills. Time to change forms. Lara Croft has a true Brave Shift, which has no limitations whatsoever. Onto her active abilities. Her offensive abilities still get stronger with morale, and they all chain with a triple-casted Bolting Strike. However, they also require a full limit burst gauge, as using any of these will completely deplete it. Queen of the Jungle gives Lara a strong beast and human killer, a 50% physical and magical mitigation buff against the same species, and then deals damage. Shots in the air is the same thing, but switches the species out for birds and machines. Volatile ammunition can be used twice per battle. It inflicts a whopping 90% defense break, a 135% fire imperil, boosts her fire damage by an incredible 60%, and then deals damage. Passives. With her Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, she gets 4 powerful killers against the already mentioned species, hits the limit burst damage cap, and gets a guts buff. She still retains Reliquarian, which only compounds her new passives, and switches out the dual wield for a double hand. Though she hits a significant portion of the bonus equipment attack stat, she'd still appreciate additional chain cap boosts. Let's look at her limit burst. It boosts her limit burst damage by a tremendous 300%, and you have to remember that she already meets the passive limit burst damage cap just off her Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped. It also gets stronger with each use, and her true Brave Shift only makes it easier to hit that ceiling. Now let's step back and rank Brave abilities. I'd recommend raising Reliquarian for more passives, Volatile Ammunition to push the fire imperil, and finally Hotshot, as raising it just raises damage. Time to make a damage rotation. On turn 1, cast Keen Instincts, Explosive Shot, and Hotshot. On turn 2, activate her Brave Shift, and cast her Limit Burst. On turn 3, switch back and triple cast Hotshot. On turn 4, activate her Brave Shift, and use her Limit Burst again. From here, you'll repeat the rotation, but on turn 2, make sure to switch the first Limit Burst with Volatile Ammunition to really capitalize on that damage modifier. Of course, if you're in Clash of Wills and happen to be fighting a beast, human, bird, or machine, you can trade out the Limit Burst for Queen of the Jungle or shots in the air, depending on what exactly you're facing. So, EX2? Getting Lara to EX plus 2 not only gives her the strongest gun in the game, but it also gives her an instant Limit Burst. This is pretty valuable, given a significant part of her kit relies on Limit Burst crystals to activate, not to mention the Limit Burst that gets stronger with each use. However, thanks to her true Brave Shift, you do have far more leeway in actual battle, as you don't need to abide by any cooldowns of some sort. In short, EX plus 2 gives you more speed, giving the already fast Lara an even greater boost. Getting her to EX plus 3 gives her 500 attack. More attack is always helpful, though of course you should only try to reach it if you happen to be a big fan of Laura. On a side note, you do get a second copy of her vision card at EX plus 3, but if that's the only appeal, you might be better off getting it from EX plus 1 from a second copy. So, how good is Lara Croft? Lara's physical damage, well, according to this tier list I found on the internet, I mean, she's not bad, I guess. But you also have to realize that this tier list is kind of impractical. If you look here, you can see that it somehow expects you to use an ability that depletes her limit burst, then pop her actual limit burst, followed by another ability that needs her full limit burst, and then use her limit burst again. Now, I have to assume that the creator of this tier list hasn't watched my review video, because the average player can't quite fill her limit burst gauge every single turn. Though at EX plus 2, I do concede that the first few turns are admittedly possible. But even though this image relies on unrealistic rotations, it's not wrong to say Lara is one of our strongest units, thanks to her high damage modifiers, excellent imparos, and fast setups. It helps that she's flexible. While she excels at fire damage, she's not locked into it, giving you greater levity if she's fighting the wrong enemy. She only gets better in Clash of Wills, where her offensive abilities scale with morale. Of course, high damage is never a good reason to chase a unit in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, especially given that a majority of Lara's available weapons aren't exactly known for their extreme popularity. But Lara has 90% defense breaks, which can continue to push the damage output of any other future physical damage dealer, and that value cannot be underestimated. It does have to be noted though that she offers little else. Many of her meaningful buffs are self-imposed, and she doesn't have any on-demand abilities that fill the morale gauge. Interestingly, this makes her a Clash of Wills unit that benefits more from being thrown into it, but has little to contribute once her time has passed. Nevertheless, a 90% defense break is significant, and if you don't have Venera Fanes, Lara Croft is a powerful damage dealer that can continue to push her damage output to even further degrees in the future. Of course, we can't forget she's a limited time unit, so if you like the Tomb Raider series, this is one opportunity you likely won't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, leave a like and subscribe. Comment below if you got Lara Croft. Though her unit isn't too standout, there is one more feature I briefly mentioned, her vision card. It has an incredible set of passives, with high attack and status element nullification, which can make it very valuable for future setups. It might very well be worth picking out Lara Croft just to hold on to this card, though of course that requires EX plus 1. Man, I already missed the Daily Fragment Challenge.